All right, it's 7:03. I'd like to call the City of Urbana Council's Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons, Mr. Brown, Mr. Jacobson, Mr. Madigan.
Here.
Ms. Marlin.
Here.
Mr. Roberts, Mr. Smythe.
Here.
Mayor Pressing.
Here.
Thank you. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay. Any staff reports at this time? Libby Tyler, Community Development Services.
Good evening. Libby Horwitz sent out earlier to you the monthly economic development report, and lots going on there. A lot of these I think we've already mentioned in one way or another. I will say that we had our last market this past Saturday, beautiful November Saturday. It's been a very successful season, and Natalie Kenny Marquez, our market director, will be presenting an annual report probably in December to the council, early January. Also, there's a new director at Urbana Business Association, Executive Director Paris Blaylock, and Paris will also be presenting to the council in December, early January, so you'll have a chance to meet her. An announcement, and this was in your packets, our second annual Market at the Square Community-Supported Agriculture Fair is coming Monday, December 14th from 4 to 7. That's at the Urbana Civic Center. It's really a fun event, and I think we're going to have even more booths and more activities, and can learn a lot, and put your orders in for your very own farmer's produce next growing season. Also, we have another Habitat for Humanity home dedication in Urbana this week. It's been quite a few of these. On tomorrow, Tuesday, November 10th at 4 p.m., this will be at 1405 Eads in Urbana, and this will be dedication for Angel Vanderbilt and her family. And so the public is invited for that ceremony at that time. Any questions? Holiday market starting too Saturday, so still can go shopping inside at Lincoln Square Village.
Okay. Thank you. Any other staff reports? Mayor?
I got a communication from Representative Ammons' office about a bill that would raise the homestead exemption from $6,000 to $14,000, and this is being pushed by Chicago because they're planning a big property tax increase, and the mayor didn't want it to fall on homeowners. So the question was asked of how would this affect Urbana, and I talked to the Supervisor of Assessments, Chief Deputy Joe Mintz, and he said there are 7,122 homestead exemptions in Urbana. So if you multiply that by $8,000, which would be the increase from $6,000, which it currently is, up to $14,000, that would be a loss of about $57 million in assessed value, and we would have to have triple that amount in new construction or increases in value in order to make that up. And it would hit Champaign with about $133 million, and the whole county government would lose $367 million. So I had suggested that perhaps instead of doing it this way, it's a huge change, just to gradually increase the homestead exemption over time with inflation, or key it to a unit of government's tax increase. But this is just another example of what's lurking out there in terms of the legislature doing unfunded mandates or taking away our revenue. So I thought you should know about that. Anybody have any questions? Thanks.
Any other staff reports? Charlie?
Actually, in terms of that, I don't understand why the legislature, given that they do all these exceptions for Chicago, if Chicago wants it, just do it for Chicago and leave the rest of us out of it.
Well, I raised that issue, and I was told that they get criticized for doing things just for Chicago, so that's why they're doing this. So anyway, it's never ending.
That's an understatement. Okay, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from October 26th?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Ammons, seconded by Charlie. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Public input, I have one card from Bishop King James Underwood and Reverend Dr. Evelyn B. Underwood, who do not wish to speak, but they ask to put into the record that they are continually concerned about the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewer problems. Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? All right. First on the agenda is resolution number 2015-11-060R, which is a resolution authorizing the City of Urbana to issue its revenue bond for the Clark-Lindsay Village Project, Series 2015, for the purpose of providing funds to finance the costs of a project for Clark-Lindsay Village, authorizing and approving certain documents in connection with the issuance of said bond, and authorizing certain other actions in connection with the issuance of said bond. And I believe Finance Department, Elizabeth Hannon, has a report.
Yes, I'm just going to make a short introduction, but basically the city has a limit of $10 million annually for bank qualified bonds. This year, we're almost at the end of the year. We have no plans to issue those bonds for our purpose, and so Clark-Lindsay has come to us and asked us to do a conduit bond issue in which they take advantage of our ability to issue tax-exempt bonds to obtain a lower interest rate, and this would be used by Clark-Lindsay to finance a $15 million improvement to their facilities. The city has no obligation to make payments. There's no cost to the city whatsoever. And in fact, there's a long-term benefit because Clark-Lindsay, as our 5th largest taxpayer, will be making improvements to their property, which will increase their assessed value. So we have a few folks here representing Clark-Lindsay to just give you a brief overview of the project.
Thank you. And please introduce yourselves and speak into the microphone.
My name is Tim Mast, and I'm the CFO at Clark-Lindsay, and I've been there 5 years. And then I brought Carl Weber.
Thank you. Carl Weber, attorney in Urbana, and do the legal work, and have been working on the bonds, and we thank you for your time. And Tim has a presentation for you.
I brought some slides, basically, to show what we are doing at Clark-Lindsay. And the project is twofold. When we said $15 million investment, we're investing on the front side of the building, on the north side, investing in a wellness and aquatic center. So we're actually building a pool and fitness center and added therapy space. And this is an area that's, like I said, at the moment, this is the front view of the building with the change. This right here is the majority of the change, where we're building the wellness center. And this overview right here is one that shows where what's in white is all the new construction and how it's getting pieced into our existing building. And the pool and wellness, the pool has been something that our residents had wanted for numerous years. And we've been going back and forth with various plans and how to incorporate it, and then decided to incorporate it again with wellness and fitness. So basically a benefit for the residents and public for Clark-Lindsay, because people come for outpatient therapy too. And then on the south side of the facility, on the back side, down south of Wing 6, between our land and between the Park District land, we're going to build 2 assisted living / skilled care facilities that are what they call greenhouses or small houses. A greenhouse concept is where you have basically 12 individual private rooms, and then an open concept kitchen, dining room, a little bit of a family room and living room, and it's more of a concept of community care where the people that take care of the elders, basically live and, or not live, but work hand in hand with the elders in things like cooking and meal preparation, serving, and things like that. So it's kind of a partnership between the people, the residents, and the staff members. And this is kind of an exterior view of one of the buildings. So there will be two buildings, two 12-unit buildings.
Any questions for our presenters? Meg?
Well, I don't have any questions. I probably have a bit of a disclosure. My wife's grandmother lives at Clark Lindsey, so I may be a bit biased here because I think you have an outstanding facility. We visit on a regular basis, and so part disclosure and part kudos. I'm all for this, and I really appreciate the amenity that you provide the community.
Thank you.
Aaron?
On the south side, will there be some, I didn't see if there will be some fence, or will there be, you know, when people are walking through through the park and on the through the trail and stuff like that. I've walked it many times, and I don't recall seeing any sort of, I don't know, structure or anything that sort of blocks the view. Or I'm just wondering, what is it going to look like? Will there be some sort of fence or something on that side?
I believe there will be a fence between, on the backs, between the two houses is going to be, there's not going to be a fence behind the homes, but between the two homes is a courtyard with a fence so that the residents can actually move outside through the courtyard. So the courtyard will be fenced off, but behind the homes themselves, there will not be a fence. But we've also worked in conjunction with the Park District to plan the landscaping, so it's kind of a joint effort. In the development that we did on the east side where we built the villas, we've been, again, worked with the Park District to come up with a landscaping plan. So we're meshing our landscape into their landscape. And then on the south side, we're doing the same. We actually had to take down, in a joint efforts, 5 ash trees. So then it's the planning of what's coming in after that. And again, that's a joint effort with the Park District.
I certainly think we're fortunate that they were ash trees and not some other trees, since they had to be cut down anyway. Will this affect the gardens over there at all?
No, the gardens are more to the east, southeast, and it does not. The homes actually line up to the parking lot in Urbana Park District. There's a parking lot which actually Clark Lindsey built that parking lot for the Park District many years ago. So the homes kind of line up there, and there's still quite a bit of green space to the south and west, or south and east.
Okay, thank you.
Charlie?
Yeah, I guess I sort of agree with Mike, except that constituent number 1 wants to know when you're going to build her tower restaurant so that she can drink coffee in the morning and wine in the evening, overlooking the sunrise and sunset. So that I would suggest is your phase 4 plan. The next time you come for bonds, because this is not the first time you've done this with us, I believe.
2004.
Okay, yeah. And Aaron asked my question. I assume the landscaping is coming. I'm having trouble picturing 15 million here. The pool is...
The pool project is about $6 million, pool and wellness and added therapy space. And there's a lot of office moves and things like that. And then the 2 green homes, which includes civil, there's a road coming off of Race Street. So what we call the civil, we're adding some parking to a little bit off that road, and then the 2 individual homes. When we say 14 to 15 million, that's everything, including the kitchen sink, taking into account financing cost, interest, the whole ball wax. The construction cost with the is probably about 12.5 million at the moment.
Okay.
Aaron?
Well, I want to thank you, too. I think you've always used the money very wisely and have beautifully designed buildings and grounds.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Is there a motion to send it to council?
I was going to say
Charlie.
one more thing is,
Oh.
you know, I just wonder when we can put in our reservations to live there.
I'm right behind you.
Constituent number one is planning on it. She asked me to check our finances today with that goal in mind. Anyway, I move to send this council's recommendation for approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This passes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up is resolution number 2015-11-061R, which is a resolution deeming certain funds in the Special Tax Allocation Fund for the Downtown Tax Increment Redevelopment Project area as surplus funds and directing payment and distribution thereof. We have finance report again.
So many years ago, when TIF 1 was extended, there was an agreement between the city and the school and park districts to distribute a surplus annually from the TIF 1 fund. And so this is just the annual distribution for the current year. It's a slight increase over last year's just because the taxes collected for the TIF have increased just a little bit by 2.3%. So this gets distributed to all the various taxing districts.
Any questions? Aaron?
So when I was reading through this earlier, I saw where the surplus distribution is in addition to other amounts paid to the school district as reimbursement for vocational training and to the park district for various community projects this year. I'm still not exactly sure on what vocational training are we talking about. Is there an actual program at the high school, at the city of Urbana that? Or is
I'm going to ask Libby if she can comment on that, because that's really CD that manages that payment to the school district for the vocational.
The vocational payments are a provision in the State Redevelopment Act that allows for these payments to the school districts, and it's for the general purpose of vocational training. I think we would have to ask the school district specifically what classes, anything with adult ed. I know they put it to good use, but I really couldn't tell you exactly what programs or which faculty benefit from that. But it's something that we've done from the very beginning with our TIF districts, and that's enabled by the state law.
Well, I mean, I really don't know if you can answer all the questions or concerns. I'm just saying that I spent ample time talking to the quote-unquote building and skill trades about the ability for more rural kids to have a quote-unquote better skill set, and they're better prepared to come into and possibly get these types of jobs. So when I see where in the sort of urban setting we have funds that we're actually paying for vocational training, I'd like to make sure that the council is very clear on exactly what that vocational training is, because if it's not being used for that, then I'd like to see it used for that somehow. So I talked to Dr. Owens. I do know that there's something going on, but I'm not sure that we're very clear on exactly what that is, and I'd like to see something like that strengthened and make sure that the council is aware of exactly what those payments are for.
Sure. We can come back with more information.
Mayor?
I think they used to have a program of building a house every year, and we contributed to that. But the last time we talked about it, they said it was very hard to get people to teach that course. There was a shortage of people to teach it. So I would like to see more of that type of training myself. I think it was a very valuable thing for the high school students to build a house. And I know that people launched their careers as a result of that. So,
Mike?
Well, I think Aaron, he raises a great point. It's something I hadn't really thought about. You think about vocational training, and I hadn't really thought about it in terms of urban versus rural. And I grew up as a farm kid, so I would have been one of those kids who might have had a bit of a leg up on those kind of things. So maybe as a city with city tax revenues, and no offense to my rural brethren, but yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think it's something we ought to look into, and who knows if we can direct that kind of thing. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. I don't know. I don't know what the restrictions are, but it's a great point. Something I had never thought of, and I think we ought to do everything we can as a city to encourage vocational training for city youth.
We have our annual meeting with the school district and the other taxing bodies coming up in a few weeks, so we can talk about that there as well.
And you send it to me. And you can send me that information so that I can
It's a
maybe
joint
attend.
review board meeting, yeah, I think it's December 2nd, so.
And you just email it to me, then I'll have it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Charlie?
I'll just make a motion since the council with the recommendation for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that passes. Next up is resolution number 2015-11-062R, resolution determining the amounts of money necessary to be raised by the tax levy. Elizabeth Hannon.
Well, it's that time of the year again when we talk about the tax levy. So this year, we are estimating, again, very modest growth in assessments. We won't know the final outcome until the spring because there's still a lot of things in motion. The Board of Review is still reviewing complaints, and there's a few other things that have yet to be settled. But I would guess by the time it's all said and done, our assessments are probably going to grow somewhere in the 0.5% to 1% range. We, this year, have decided to target a tax rate of $1.355. That was the rate we were shooting for last year, and we underestimated a bit, and we came in at $1.3462, so we were off by less than 1 cent. We levy taxes for several purposes. The largest is pension levies for police and fire, and this year the mayor is recommending that we levy based on the state requirement of a 26-year, 90% amortization of the unfunded liability. That will allow us to shift funds into the corporate purpose levy, which is revenue in the general operating fund, so that we can use it to balance our operating budget, which includes next year anticipated pay increases that exceed $500,000. We are recommending for the library a levy of $2,993,837, which is an increase of 2.57%. That's consistent with the amount that's required to keep their budget in balance for the remainder of this fiscal year. It's a slightly higher tax rate, estimated to be about 56.6 cents per hundred of assessed valuation. And then the remaining amount would be levied for corporate purposes, which goes into the general operating fund. That will be approximately $2,165,864. As you know, this is a two-step process. First, we will ask you to adopt an estimated levy. That amount will be slightly higher because we can always levy less in the final levy, but we cannot levy more. And so we're estimating a total tax levy of $7,250,000 in this resolution, which again is slightly higher than we expect the final levy to be. Before the levy is extended, the county can reduce it to achieve our desired tax rate. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions, Mike?
So, what is Champagne's current rate? Current tax rate?
Mayor?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I could guess, but
It's a little bit lower than ours. But I thought you were going to ask a different question, which was,
Well,
what's the funding of the pensions?
actually,
And-
well, I just wanted to start with what's Champagne's rate.
Okay.
And I think that's a very important thing to know.
It's a one or two, oh, I think Mike Munson knows it cold.
I believe it's about $1.31.
Okay. So, we are roughly a nickel per $100 of assessed valuation over Champagne. So would that be, help me out, I'm a barbecue salesman. A nickel would be 5%. How much higher are we as a percentage than Champaign?
4 cents would be less than 4% because it's over a dollar. It's $1.35.
4.5 cents. Well, it's not.
Well, it's less than 4% because you're
Yeah.
over a dollar.
3.4%.
Okay.
But that, of course, is only the city's tax levy, and in the end, what the taxpayer sees is the levy for all taxing districts.
Right. And do we know what the overall difference is between the two cities when you incorporate park districts and those kind of things?
Our overall tax rate, I believe, is currently about $10.60, and theirs is, I want to say, around $8.
Yeah, it's about 25% difference as a result of the shift that we had a few years ago.
Okay. Well, I really did appreciate the meeting with you and the mayor and Mike to understand all of this. I will say that while I believe that police and fire protection are the paramount concerns of city government, I also would agree with the mayor that the funding levels of the pensions at this point in time are outstanding relative to that of other communities in Illinois. Really outstanding. And I think that it was a really good thing that we reached agreement on contracts with all of the city unions. And so I believe that with regard to the new calculation in terms of funding of police and fire pensions, I'm sure that police and fire are probably not thrilled with this, but in terms of what the financial experts would say is we are still in very, very good shape, and it allows us to fund those contracts. So I think that is a far superior method of funding the contracts to a tax increase. I'm going to withhold judgment at this point about what we're doing overall. I guess maybe this is my fault, but I didn't understand until I heard it on the radio after our meeting, and like I say, this could be totally my fault, that we were actually raising the tax rate. That was just unclear to me in the meeting, and that's probably my fault, and I'll admit that. So I'm going to withhold judgment about the actual rate increase. I thought the levy was increasing based upon increased assessed values. So I'm still having some difficulty with this, but I'm willing to talk about it because I understand that we're not talking about a major amount of money, but I continue to have concerns about the disparity between Urbana and Champaign, and I'm concerned about the city of Urbana and its ability to compete with Champaign on future economic development projects because of the disparity in the tax rates. So that's kind of where I am right now, but I like I say, I really did appreciate the meeting. I think the approach is very good in terms of trying to balance out here without just going to the taxpayers and to make this thing work. But I just still need to give it more thought.
Mayor?
Well, as Elizabeth said, we aimed for this tax rate last year. That's what we all agreed to, but we ended up, I guess, underestimating our assessed value. So we ended up with a slightly lower rate. But what I wanted to point out in terms of the adequacy of our pension funding is that according to that state commission on financing, COGFA, you know about COGFA, Urbana Fire is in the year 2013, Urbana Fire was at 85%, Champaign Fire was at 74%. Urbana Police was at 74%, and Champaign was at 72%. So we were in 2013 higher funded than the city of Champaign.
Well, and I completely agree with all of that, and my hat is off to the city administration for, over the years, doing what the state of Illinois has not done, which is to do the right thing and fund those pensions. But I do think there's a little breathing room in this instance, and we're not putting ourselves in any kind of financial jeopardy. We're not putting any of the pension funds in anything close to any kind of financial jeopardy. And I think to go to the taxpayers to ask for more, to keep it at these levels, is, in this economy, is not the right move. So I absolutely agree with that part of it. I'm just still having a bit of heartburn with the disparity in the tax rates, and I hope we can continue to work on that.
Well, if we get our enterprise zone approved, that'll help address the disparity in tax rates. Any other questions?
That's up to the governor.
Is there a motion to
Move to
send
send
this?
this to council with recommendation for approval.
Second.
Moved by Charlie, seconded by Aaron. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay. Next up is resolution number 2015-11-110, which is an ordinance revising the fiscal year 2015-16 annual budget for a human relations officer. Mayor?
Well, when Vasilia Clark retired, we, as part of the budget cuts, we lowered that position to half-time. But I think we're all aware that this whole issue of human rights, human relations has sort of taken the national stage, certainly, and it's a big issue in this county. And we've hired Alex Batista, who's done an excellent job, and he is highly respected with his peers in other communities in this area. And he not only staffs the Civilian Review Board, but also the IDOT traffic study, which you now have a copy of. And he also does the major job of interacting with local employers in enforcing our human relations ordinance, because a lot of times employers are not aware of the state and federal laws regarding hiring and keeping employees. So I'm recommending that we restore this position to full-time. And to get the money, I'm suggesting that we transfer internally in my office from outside legal counsel, from that line item, and all the related personnel items besides the salary would amount to a transfer of $32,588. And that's what the budget transfer is for. It's spelled out. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Aaron?
I agree 100% with this move. I have had the pleasure of working with Alex. He is indeed extremely thorough, quite professional. I think he represents the city quite well. So I recommend we move this to council with recommendation of approval.
Okay. Is this a budget? This isn't a budget amendment.
Well, it's a transfer, but it's been characterized as an amendment because it's a change.
Okay. Well, do we need?
It-
Oh, it's
it-
committee.
No,
We
this
don't
is just
do
a
that.
committee,
Okay.
right.
So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. That passes. Next up is Resolution 2015-11-063R, resolution approving agreement for federal participation with the Illinois Department of Transportation. And this is for the Lincoln Avenue right-of-way acquisition. Public Works, Bill Gregg.
Good evening. What's before you are two action items, actually. The first is a resolution that would authorize the mayor to sign an agreement with IDOT. This would put into place an agreement by which we would have funds available to purchase right-of-way for Lincoln Avenue, the 1 mile stretch between Saline Court, where it currently dead ends, up to Olympian Drive. The second companion item to this action then would be the city share is $80,000, and that would come from state motor fuel tax money, and the resolution that would authorize that expenditure is attached as part of the packet. So this is kind of the next step in our process. The design is essentially done. We have right-of-way plats prepared. We're waiting for final appraisals before we can contact these property owners. And with this action, we would have the funds in place to start to purchase right away. Again, we're targeting construction hopefully spring of next year, but that's always subject to purchasing all the right-of-way here, and it's hard to predict if there'd be any delays, based on that process. Quick update with Olympian Drive. We have monthly updates with photos on the website, but just to let you know, last Friday the bridge deck was poured, and we're preparing the parapet walls for the bridge over the tracks. So that work is going on. Later this week there'll be some asphalt paving at the intersection of Lincoln Avenue, and we hope perhaps to have the Lincoln Avenue portion that's closed open maybe as soon as a week from Friday. There's some striping and other things, but the actual Olympian Drive itself will be closed through the winter time frame, and would probably be opening that up next spring when we finish up all the other work out there. So anyway, it's a companion project, of course. But anyway, Lincoln Avenue, this is the next step. I did put in the memo that we have a request for a few more federal dollars from CUATS. That's on the agenda for December. We're hopeful that those will be provided to us, and again, to try to keep the county and the city local share as low as possible.
Are there any questions? Aaron?
So, Bill, I see that it says that we need 20 more acres of private property to be acquired. Is that already something that is in the makings, or is this eminent domain? What exactly has to occur here?
It's has been identified as a need as the location to build the road. That process had been discussed in various public meetings we had, for the last few years. We hope to acquire this land through an arm's length agreement, fee simple. We don't anticipate any eminent domain at this juncture.
Does that mean that we have willing participants, or?
We believe so, but technically we haven't made offers, so that's what we're waiting on with the final appraisals.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mike?
So, Bill, could you please remind me, what is the plan for improving Lincoln Avenue between I-74 and Saline Court? I noticed that the 4 lanes start at Saline Court. Is there any plan for the upgrade of the road south of there?
Yeah. First of all, just to be clear, although the included photo shows 4 lanes, we're just building 2 with shoulders, okay? So I want to make that clear. It's the cross-section. There's 2 cross-sections on that map, and it's the half for the 2 lanes.
Okay.
As far as Lincoln Avenue South, yes, we do have near-term in our capital improvement plan to do a lot of resurfacing, milling, resurfacing on Lincoln Avenue. So I don't recall that it's 2016, but if it's not 16, it's for sure in 17. But there's a lot of Lincoln Avenue milling, resurfacing work that's needed pretty much through town.
Yeah.
But that area in particular, I know, is one of the highest priorities to have happen.
Yeah, I mean, it gets a lot of heavy traffic, so I
Yes.
just was curious. So the acquisition plan is in anticipation of 4 lanes eventually,
Correct.
and 2 lanes to be constructed under this?
That is correct.
All right,
Right.
thanks for the reminder.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to send it to council with the recommendation for approval?
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Madigan. Second by Aaron. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes. Next up is Resolution 2015-11-064R, resolution for improvement by a municipality under the Illinois Highway Code. That's for Lincoln Avenue improvement right-of-way, purchase with motor fuel tax funds.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Madigan, seconded by Smythe. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay.
You only have to remember 3 names tonight.
We're moving along quite quickly.
Let's keep it
Next
going.
up is Resolution
Don't stop.
2015-11-065R, resolution approving an amendment to an Urbana Home Consortium Community Housing Development Organization agreement with Champaign County Neighborhood Alliance for Habitat. Choto operating fiscal year 2012-2013. Community development. Matt.
And I'll be, good evening, everyone, first of all. I'll be presenting on all of the 5 of these resolutions related to the Choto agreements, but then they can be voted on omnibus fashion. The proposed changes almost entirely stem from the most recent home monitoring that the city undertook from HUD during this past May. And a lot of the amendments focus on 2 major issues that were identified by HUD. The first major issue is a response to a request by HUD that the Community Housing Development Organization, Choto, agreements made with Champaign County Neighborhood Alliance for Habitat be amended to be made with the parent organization, Habitat for Humanity of Champaign County. Neighborhood Alliance was formed in 2011 as a subsidiary of Habitat, but it was then merged back into its parent organization, Habitat for Humanity, in 2014. And during those intervening years, several agreements were made with Neighborhood Alliance, but HUD instructed us as part of the monitoring to amend those agreements to make them instead with Habitat for Humanity. And 4 of the resolutions tonight deal with agreements that have those amendments. The second major issue that HUD identified relates to the online interface that the city uses to draw down funds from the federal government for community development activities called the IDIS. And from our records, the city spent appropriate amounts of what are called Choto operating funds, which are federal home dollars that the city receives to give to Chotos like Habitat for administrative purposes, staff salaries, etc. And HUD during the monitoring noticed that due to a clerical error or series of clerical errors with IDIS, that basically the city was shown to have exceeded the cap for using Choto operating funds, even though our records indicated that did not happen. So to rectify the issue, HUD directed us to identify in the agreements that we used to allocate fiscal year 2012-2013 operating funds to actually spell out how many of those funds came from which agreement to resolve that issue and just to show that we indeed did not go over the cap for using those funds. And again, HUD has indicated that it is a result of just a clerical error, and just by amending these agreements, we should be able to overcome that. Other miscellaneous additions relate to just identifying what eligible uses can be used with the Choto operating funds. And as a result of these amendments, there will be no fiscal impact on the city, and staff recommends that the committee of the whole recommend approval of the proposed amendments.
Any questions for Matt? Mike?
So basically what you're saying is this is a technical amendment to city ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, I'd move approval.
Charlie?
I'd like to do all 5 and all 5 at council as well. So move
yeah.
to.
We need a motion then to do
move
this
to
in omnibus
Move to
fashion.
do this. Okay.
I'd move approval in omnibus fashion.
Second.
Okay. Now we actually vote on all 5. All those in favor say
No, we
aye.
have to move omnibus first.
What?
Yep.
That's what I meant.
Just
Okay.
all those in favor say aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
And now we move that approves the
Right.
omnibus part.
So now we're voting on the
Move
Move
all
the
5 to
package.
council.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Moved by Charlie, seconded by
Second.
Second.
Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. On to item number 16, ordinance number 2015-11-111, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 22, Article 6, Section 2290C4, which is an amendment to food and beverage tax ordinance to clarify the tax obligations for persons hiring Urbana-based caterers. Legal Department.
This is simply a clarification.
Madam Chairman,
Oh, yes.
I have a question of legal counsel before he launches into his, do I need to recuse myself?
No.
Thank you.
This is simply a clarification of the existing ordinance requiring or dealing with a more or less unique situation involving caterers within Urbana. There are one or more caterers who have entered into ongoing contracts with fraternities and or sororities in Champaign, where the contract is entered into in Urbana, and what the caterers do is they provide an employee chef who is an employee of the caterer to order food through the caterer for delivery to the fraternity or sorority in Champaign for preparation and service. The food and beverage tax is a tax on the privilege of purchasing food. So technically, the food is purchased through Urbana, and this makes it clear how that ordinance should apply.
Questions for Mr. Simon? Mike?
So does this mean we're charging a tax on these or not?
We have been charging a tax. This just makes it clear in this instance that the tax applies. The caterer does not pay the tax. The caterer is responsible for collecting the tax and accounting for the tax and remitting the tax. It is the organization that is purchasing the food and having the caterer prepare the food that is obligated to pay this tax.
So not any different than any catering that I provide where I collect sales tax and remit to
Exactly.
the taxing body?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Charlie?
Move to send to council with recommendation for approval.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes. Last on the agenda is ordinance number 2015-11-112, ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 2, Article 9, Sections 2-171 through and including 2-176, and adding new Section 2-177 for compliance with new state statute concerning legal defense and indemnification for city employees and officials, state statutory bar for providing legal defense and indemnity for employees' unlawful criminal, intentional, willful, wanton, and grossly negligent conduct.
This is similar to the situation you all considered last week with another ordinance. The state has passed an amendment to the Illinois Municipal Code concerning municipality indemnification of employees. We have a fairly broad ordinance that covers that, but the new state statute prohibits providing indemnification or providing the cost of defense in cases where employees have been charged criminally. It has been recommended that for us, we can expand that to include intentional, willful, wanton, or grossly negligent conduct, but not negligent conduct. These are gradations of conduct construed in law that give rise to personal injury or property damage. I also took the liberty while I was at it to make sure that the ordinance complies with our current city organizational structure. So not only commissioners who serve on commissions are covered by this, but basically all appointed individuals who serve on a commission, board, or task force is covered by the ordinance.
Questions? Aaron?
So just for clarity's sake, for myself and maybe even those who are watching, can you give me an illustration, an example?
I'll give you an illustration of where under this provision and state law, the ordinance would not apply, and a situation where it would apply. Let's say an employee commits an act and is charged with a crime for committing that act. The employee will not be defended by city-retained counsel, defense counsel, and should the employee be ordered to pay restitution, the city will not pay that restitution. However, the ordinance does provide, and the statute does allow, that the city can reimburse that employee for the cost of defense if the employee is fully exonerated in the criminal proceeding. Now, let's say a different employee is driving a city-owned vehicle while performing city-directed work and backs into somebody, doesn't look in the back or the rearview mirror, backs into somebody and either knocks somebody over or does property damage to a vehicle behind that person. The city will provide, regardless of the outcome, defense or the cost of defense, or if the employee wants to retain his or her own attorney, the city will reimburse that cost of defense. And if there's a judgment or a settlement, the city will pay the judgment or settlement. We have been doing that for many, 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 many years, and the larger risks are covered by our general liability insurance.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to send this to council with recommendation for approval.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes. I meant to say aye. Yes, Aaron?
Before you say that word that everybody's waiting to hear, I'm sorry. I just can't let it go that fast. I actually had some questions about the memo that we were sent from Bill Gray about the purchase of the heating and cooling systems. I did talk to Bill earlier. I talked to several people about this process, and I just want to publicly state that I'm increasingly, continually concerned about the access for minority-owned firms and women-owned firms having access to doing business with the city. And I understand that this A&R Mechanical firm is an approved vendor with the city. They have been working with the city. But I'm a little concerned that the A&R Mechanical firm or business inspects and replaces our systems, right? Certainly not saying that they went upstairs and did something to some system to have to replace it. I'm not trying to insinuate that. What I am saying is that for transparency and for various different reasons, I think it's appropriate if we're going to hire someone to inspect our facilities that they not be the same people who then turn around and fix or replace things that are broken. So I think that's maybe I don't know how it's done, but to me that sounds reasonable. Have someone else inspect it and someone else who's going to actually fix it and replace it. So I'm a little concerned about that, and I want to see a list of vendors who for the city, and a list of that we accumulate and acquire a list of minority, women-owned, veteran-owned firms that can do business with the city, and that we actively and aggressively pursue that so that we can have other people than just the same firms or the same organizations getting all the opportunities to do business with the city. I know that there's work being done to try to do some of that, but I just want to make it very clear publicly that, you know, I expect to see, I would love to see this type of effort, spirited effort to try to address these and to be proactive in it instead of waiting until an emergency comes up and then sort of circumvent the process of putting it out for bid and all that type of thing. So I just want to make sure that that's said publicly.
Mayor, and then Mike.
Just as a clarification, we didn't know there was an emergency until the inspection was done. Is that correct?
No, I understand that. No, I definitely understand that it was an emergency. I don't want to put our employees at a risk of possibly inhaling carbon monoxide. But these cracks were obviously in the heating and cooling systems prior to the individuals going up to inspect it, and we didn't have any alarm, and we had no one, to my knowledge, sick or ill from carbon monoxide or breathing it in through the ventilation system. So is it an emergency? I think the emergency comes about when something is actually happening that we are alerted to. But I don't think that it would have been appropriate in this situation to wait for a month or so to get a RFP and all that type of stuff. I do think that would have been risky. But I do think that there's a way that we can address some of these things to be more proactive, to make sure that it is a more diverse pool of people that we can choose from to have the opportunity to do business with the city.
Mike?
Well, yeah, just a couple of things on that. First of all, the folks who own A&R Mechanical are, I know them all. They are outstanding and upstanding citizens in the community. They have an outstanding business. They're reputable. They're honest. My assumption would be, and I could be corrected on this, that heat exchangers, when they're cracked, you can take video of that. And that's often how those type of things are shown or proven. I don't know if that's what they do for the city or not, or if I'm sure we have a good enough relationship with them that we take their word for it. But I do think Aaron, raises a good point. It's always good to get a couple of bids. As a private businessman, I get a couple of bids. I don't, while I have a great relationship with them and other contractors who do the same type of work, I want to make sure I'm getting the best, the best value for the work. That being said, I mean, I don't know why there wouldn't be an opportunity today for minority contractors to sign up with the city. So I'm not sure the city has done anything wrong here. I think if minority contractors want to step up and do business with the city, I'm sure that the city would be glad to hear from them. So maybe the work needs to be done on this end, on that end, to make sure that minority contractors are stepping up, because I'm sure they provide quality service as well, and we ought to be taking their bids.
Charlie?
Well, I think I'm sympathetic on replacing the furnace, because mine crapped out early, I think about January, February of this year. There was a problem, and when they came to inspect it, they said, "Oh, well, here, look," they actually showed me where stuff was going bad, and rather than have the carbon monoxide detector go off, I replaced it. But that said, I think in our city goals, we've asked to have some of this proactive stuff dealt with, and now that we have a full-time employee, I think that's it would be appropriate to have him tackle this issue. I know we keep some of it state required, and so on. But it is in our city goals, and hopefully Alex can tackle it sooner as opposed to later.
Just, I want to make sure that I'm very clear about this. Principally, I don't believe that the individuals who are inspecting your stuff then are the ones who turn around and fix it, right? I don't know if that's the best practice. It sounds to me very much like my concern in relationship to a complaint process where the individual has to complain to the city police department, and then the city police department makes the judgment as to whether or not the complaint is valid. I think it's very similar in that regard. So that's why I'm saying that principally my position would be the same across the board, that if there was another entity who did the inspection and said, hey, this is what we found, this is the concern, and then A&R or whoever else came in to do the work, then I think that would be appropriate. That's the position I'm taking. I'm not insinuating in any way, shape, or form that I think somebody is going to be dishonest, they're not reputable, they're not stand-up citizens in the community. That's not the position I'm taking.
Mike?
Well, I really don't want to drag this out, but yeah, that's not what I was insinuating. I'm just saying they're a very reputable company. But my point was that they take video. So nobody is in the HVAC or mechanical inspection business, all right? Anyone who's in that business is in the business of repairing or replacing. So you're not going to find anybody unless you want to pay them a fee to come and inspect. So there's going to be an expense incurred just for the inspection. See what I'm saying? So really anybody who comes to inspect wants the work. But there's no reason that you can't have two come and inspect. So I do agree with you on that point. Why not get competitive bids? And if minority contractors are willing to step up and do the inspection and bid for the work, then I think that's great.
Okay, so, if we continue to do the same things that we've always done, given that we have these particular goals in mind, then we're going to get the same results that we've always gotten. So my advocacy here at this point, and has been since I took this seat, is that the city of Urbana do something more than what they have always done to bring about a different desired result. And so whether it's this situation or any other situation, I'm advocating for making a conscious effort to accumulate, to attract, to do whatever we can do within legal bounds to help facilitate the participation of minority women-owned firms for the city of Urbana. And I'm just wanting to make sure that I continue to say that publicly because the squeaky wheel gets a little oil, right? And I have witnessed here in the past few months a couple of opportunities that I feel like we didn't take advantage of. So now I'm going to continue to speak up about this publicly until we start to make some changes about that. So that's, now I'm done, for sure. All right.
Okay. With any other comments? Okay. No further business. This meeting is adjourned.